excitement is palpable. That's the prompt.
Oh.
Say hello. Say hello to the nice people.
Hello, nice people. I'm Katherine Applegate, half of K.A. Applegate.
And I'm Michael Grant. And somewhere over there is Chris Grine.
Hi. Hello.
And we are here to talk about this really amazing graphic novel for which we are taking some credit, although Chris deserves all of it.
I mean, literally all of it.
All of it.
Because our last contribution to that book was, I believe, in 1995. So Chris has done all. And nevertheless, so we have questions for Chris. We've been told to have questions for Chris. So we do.
And so we do.
And I guess, first of all, I want to confess something, which is like every writer on earth who's ever done school tours, school visits, we kind of hate illustrators because we have to get up there and talk and talk and talk and do some dog and pony show. And the illustrator just comes in, stumbles over on his thing and starts drawing. Everybody loves it, of course. Yeah, so it's great. How did you, I'll ask you the obvious question. How did you get into art at a professional level?
Well, it was something I just done my whole life, but then, so I went to the Kansas City Art Institute post, high school. So then I ended up transferring to Ringling School of Art and Design, which is actually where I graduated from.
Minnesota, right?
Yeah. So, and after that, obviously I needed to make some money so I could live and hopefully use my diploma a little bit at the same time. So I got a job working at Hallmark worked there for about 15 years, designing greeting cards, shoebox and stuff like that. And while I was there, I decided to start trying to do some comic book stuff because that's what I've always wanted to do. And I kind of had some free time in the evening because that was before kids and before a lot of other responsibilities came up. My wife would work in her studio, sewing and doing cool stuff like that, making plush dolls and stuff. And I was working on my comics. So then it's kind of how it happened. And it was just, I didn't really know what I was doing, submitting stuff to publishers. I was like, I don't know if this is how you're supposed to do it. I just started sending things out and I got like rejections like across the board, but it was all positive stuff though. You just got to keep going. And that's kind of how I got into all this.
It's your turn.
Oh. We've got this down to a science.
I just made a joke on Twitter about slamming bourbon shooters before this, but
not true.
Apparently she's the one who's spacing out.
No, I was going to ask you what a day is like. An average day. Say post working on the Animorphs stuff. Is it inking? Is it?
What's the hardest part?
Yeah.
The hardest part for me is when I'm having to do the sketches for all the pages, because that's where, I'm taking, whether I've written it or if it's adapting, the Animorph stuff, I have to then translate that and make sure that it all works. It flows on the page. And to me, that's where most of my time is spent, is making sure that that's right. And a lot of people do really, really rough sketches. Sometimes it's hard to even see what's going on, but mine are, and you guys have seen some of them by now, 2 books worth.
Yeah.
And they're tight. They're pretty tight. They're pretty clear what's going on. So I try to make as many of my decisions art-wise in the sketches. So then when I do get to the inking stage, I can just put on whatever show I want to binge, on the computer next to me or listen to music or whatever and just work, I don't have to really think about a lot of it because all the decisions have been made. So honestly, the hardest thing for me, though that doesn't make it like the worst thing, I love doing the pencils, but they do take a lot longer. And, with all the animals I have to draw now, there's a lot of time spent researching, which is, when I write my own stuff, like a lot of times I'll avoid things like big cities and architecture and like the inside of a mall, for example, or a place called the Gardens, where it's a giant theme park and the zoo together. These are things that I would not choose to draw.
You weren't really looking at the future and seeing your difficulty.
You guys really should have thought about it. You should have thought about it.
I'll tell you a quick story. You know how Andalites got to be so weird? we actually, in the first book, when we submitted it to the public, we were, submitting to the publisher, we drew basically the grays, very simple, easy, and aliens, because we thought someday they'll put this on TV, and this is 95, and they won't be able to deal with it. So we'll keep it simple. And then the editor wrote back and said, wow, that's really kind of unimaginative. So we went, oh, okay, fine. And then we created Andalites for that. So sorry about that, dude.
That's okay. I love drawing 7 fingers on my hand. It's hard enough. It's hard enough drawing 5 and making it look right, but adding 2 more is just wrong.
You're so good with the animals too. They just leap off the page, and that's gotta mean some serious research too.
It does. It's all good. I enjoy doing it, but that's just another layer of like when I'm doing the sketches and stuff. It's like, luckily though, the iPads now, I can get right on the internet right from the iPad and look up photo references or whatever I need to look at, and then jump back into the. I don't even got to leave the computer.
It was so cool to have the internet when we were writing these things. We had like 500 books, like field guides and stuff. We'd have to go through and pick birds. Go, I don't know, where do they feed? What are they in that squirrel?
Oh God, it'd be so much easier now.
I know what you mean. That's when I was starting college, was 95, and it was art school. So if we needed photo reference, you better hope somebody had like a Kodak, like a camera so they could have instant, or else you had to send them off somewhere, all these photos to get printed just so you'd have references for hands or feet or whatever. But yeah, you can go online or just use your phone for anything. It's immediate now. It's cheating.
I have a philosophical question for you. As an artist, is it your DNA, or natural talent, basically, or learning, some combination of the two, and which is the more important, do you think? You feel like you were born to do it?
Maybe. I felt like I was born to do it, but I've seen a couple things too where people have people who would say like, oh, I wish I could draw like you. I can only draw stickman. I can only draw like you. But I spent God knows how many hours just drawing in my free time. That's all I did when I was growing up. No sports, no social interaction with actual people, no anything like that. It was just, I was always content to just sit in my room and draw. And I think a lot of it is just constantly working towards that, whether or not I knew what I was aiming for at the time or not. That was just something I always enjoyed. So
throw a question to you real quick from the chat room, actually, because look, it was an interesting question. It's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. No Truths asks, making each of the characters' thought voices a different color was a nice touch. Was there any logic behind who got what color, or was it just important that they be visually distinct?
I didn't put a lot of logic behind it. I did choose Elfanger's color was the lighter blue, and I kind of felt like that was more like a little bit more ghostly or whatever, since I knew he was getting ready to have a really bad day, without giving away a lot of spoilers. And I obviously picked red for Viscera 3. Like that was my 100% that was going to be his, just because it just seems very harsh and aggressive. The other ones, it was just like we knew we had a pool of like 5 or 6 colors to choose from, so we just kind of sat down and assigned them. There wasn't a whole lot to it. There was a few switches I think we made, but a lot of it had to do with, I think, just like who was talking all the time or back and forth. So there would be less confusion maybe if like the same 2 people were 2 of the kids, like say like Jake and Tobias or whatever, were talking. Like if they were doing a lot more talking than say a lot of the other characters, we tried to switch them around just a little bit so they weren't so too similar, but I think we did okay.
Right. So
I don't know what color we're going to choose for Axe though, because
hey, I should pause here to mention that, and it looks like it's happening anyway. Please, if you've got questions for us or for Chris, as long as they're not obscure questions about book 28, page 3, we will try to answer as many as we can throughout this chat. So keep them coming. One that Sydney Tillman just asked was, Chris, if you had a least favorite, which I think you've kind of touched on already, thing to draw in Animorphs, and a most favorite. Is there something you really like?
Well, I enjoy a lot of it, but I love the aliens. I love drawing the aliens. Viscera 3 is my favorite to draw, even though he's the most difficult for me to draw too. Because
oh, really?
Well, when you're trying to draw a face, like when you're drawing like a human face, like you can locate the eyes and the nose and the
Yeah.
mouth, and which then creates kind of like the jaw and all that. And so without the nose or a mouth, it's sometimes it's hard to define, or it looks it looks a little lumpy, or it just doesn't look right to me. So as much as I like drawing him, his face is also very difficult. But I love drawing the aliens the most, mostly because I think they're pulled like right out of my brain too. And from, obviously it's based on your stuff, but I was able to kind of take some of the, stuff that had come before and some of the, just things that I had found online and kind of say, okay, well, that's, this is how other people solve this problem. And then I went back and read the actual descriptions in the book, and tried to pull from all of that and pull it together. So I feel like those are the most unique for me personally, I think, to draw.
Did you ever do Animorphs fan art or any other fan art back before you were a pro?
No, not really. Honestly, before the comics and stuff, before I was not really an avid comic reader. So I'm more of a, and still today, I'm more of a movie watcher, TV and stuff. I do get frustrated when I see people who constantly posting amazing fan art online, and I'm just wondering, where do you get your time? Where is this time where you can just sit down and do these amazing pieces? Like, I just don't do that. I don't have time to. People are like, well, where's all your concept art? Where's all the sketchbooks filled with, all your characters and stuff? And I just don't know what they're talking about. I don't. I go right into a project. Usually, it's like right to the next one. So.
Well, and you're a parent too. You have kids?
Yes. I have two kids, a 7-year-old boy and an almost 13-year-old daughter who's already got the attitude for being 13, even though she's not quite there yet.
The story.
Yeah, I know.
So your studio is at home? You work at home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do we.
And I've worked from home for about 5 years now, so it's been really nice because I can, if the kids have something come up or if they get sick, I can just go to the school. I can go have lunch with them or whatever. But now they're all invading my space, and with everything that's going on. So
yeah, but you're probably like through it. Surviving the COVID lockdown better than most people. I mean, I hate to say it, we barely noticed it just because we both work at home. We already had all our food delivered. God knows neither of us cooks, so it's been kind of effortless for us.
Yeah, unlike many people.
Unlike everybody.
Yeah.
Unlike 99% of humanity.
Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, my kids had been read the riot, act long before COVID came around about if my studio door is shut, you can come in, but you better peek very quietly because I might be live on something. I might be coming in. I got my son who loves drawing too, just loves it. And he reminds me of myself too. I got a little drawing table in my studio, so if he wants to come in and draw, spend time with me, then that's great. He doesn't though. He'd rather just play on his iPad and play Minecraft all day, but it's here if he wants it,
Yeah.
Back in 2007, when our kids were still at home and young, and actually I was just coming up with just starting to write Gone, and we had something we called the Parent Trap Room, and it was like I don't know, it should have been like I don't know, it was a dining room or something. It was off to the side, and so we just closed the door and go, you can't come in here. Unfortunately, glass doors. So it was like a zombie
mistake,
movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get
them out.
Hey, do you work in other media, or is this all you have time for right now?
Well, I mean, honestly, when I was in college, all I worked with was like oil paint and colored pencils.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't like real painting. I'm gonna do like a rub out kind of a thing, and then do colored pencils over the top of it. And that was where I was kind of heading for. Like, that was my goal. Like post college was to do like illustrations for magazines or books, or get into children's books. And then it's like I think it was like 3 or 4 months after I started Hallmark, which would have been right at the beginning of 2001. They went all digital. And there was a lot of old school people who had been doing artists, forever there. And there was a lot of pushback, but I just kind of transitioned right into digital, and I've kind of never looked back. I don't know that I even could do what I used to do in college anymore. I'd be so rusty at it. It'd be very frustrating. But yeah, but a lot of it too is the time thing too, because working all digitally cuts a lot of corners and saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Question from Maria Capital. I think I got that right. I think I know my Portuguese pronunciation. I don't know. I know her from Twitter. For Chris, who was the hardest kid to draw?
Oh, that's probably going to be Tobias. And I think for me, the pressure was coming from the fact that I know that he's like a fan favorite. And oh man, I cannot mess up Tobias. Or at least I have to, there was a lot riding on a lot of this stuff. I mean, I wanted to do my own designs and stuff, my own versions of this, but at the same time, I need to honor what's come before and what the fans are familiar with and what they're expecting to some extent. So he kept me up at night the longest just because I wanted to. In fact, when I started posting early art online, after it had been announced, and every now and then I'd post a few panels or whatever, just little teasers. I refused to post anything with him in it because I was so scared of
I heard there was some mini controversy about the color of his hair, and I realized that that's probably because when she would write a description of it, it would come out one way, and when I had a slightly different picture in my head, and then we never went back and like, oh, no, was it blonde or dark or brown? Well, he's a hawk. Screw it. We don't care.
It's true. It's true though that people are obsessed with Tobias. We've had fans come up to us, rolling strollers along, and the baby sitting there was named after Tobias. We've had people, with tats. It's just, it's really amazing. I mean,
it's very flattering.
It's hugely flattering. And, but Tobias, just for everybody.
Here's another one from a fan from Limelsan 3, maybe. I might have a question for Applegate. That's a report myself. Where did the alien languages come from? Were there any Earthlangs they were based on, or was the grammar planned in advance? Dude, it would be like pick a word, reverse some letters, take one out. Hey, there you go. I think the story we always tell is that the word Nothlit, and it's true, came because we were sitting in Minneapolis in an apartment building, and right across the street from us was a Hilton. So we were always staring at the word Hilton. We just took the word Hilton and reversed some of the letters and said, that'll do.
And the great thing about that was we had a kid, a just rabid fan / tiny stalker, track us down from that data, figure out what apartment we had to be in, and tracked us down with his dad, figured we're right across from the Hilton. And it was so sweet because I think that was our first and only stalker.
Yeah, so. It was sweet or insane, one of the two. We're not sure. We're open-minded on that. The reason I'm leaning in here is I have glasses, but they don't focus at that particular distance. From Ashley Adams, what do you guys think about the positive reaction to the comic and all the series of lifelong fans, kids starting to read Animorphs? Were you expecting this reaction? In other words, I guess basically, did we think that this was the fandom was still out there and that we might get some new fans? Yeah, I'll tell you something about us and the Animorphs fans. We started off before there was the internet, certainly before there was social media, and there was such a deluge of fan letters. Is that a humble brag? We just couldn't handle it. There was so many. So we had Scholastic handle those because we were writing 14 books a year. It was we had 3 weeks to write a book.
New baby,
and our usual just personal problems. So we didn't hear from the fans for years and years and years, and we had no feedback. So we had no basis for believing that anybody was paying any attention to what we were writing. And then later on, somehow, I guess on the internet, our address must have gotten out because we started getting letters from people. And there would be like 4 pages, single-spaced, typed on both sides about how Animorphs had formed their entire view of the world. And we kind of, looked at each other because our first rule since we started writing was never to believe your own hype. It's all fun. We're having a good time. Let's not take ourselves seriously. And then there's all these people out there, these fans who are taking us seriously. And I think, like you, my first panic reaction was, oh my God, what did we say? We should probably read back through and make sure we didn't do something.
Go read those again.
Say something insane. So apparently it worked out because I got to tell you, the Animorphs fans are a consistently sweet bunch of people.
They are.
It's always been
And smart
great.
and funny and
Great taste in reading. It's just, it goes on and
no,
on.
engaged in the world. I mean, they're always, I can always tell when I do a book event, I can always tell an Animorphs fan. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They come up, sometimes it's almost reverential, which is, you know, sweet, but it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you know, we're your grandma and grandpa. You know, it's just let's climb down here a little bit. Is there any chance, this is from Tori Chang, is there any chance in the future there could be more than one book per year? I love the adaptations, but with so many books, ... smiley face.
Yeah, Chris, you want to take that? You're gonna need to sleep,
possible.
right?
It's possible. I'm currently doing about 2 graphic novels a year right now. That was not my first choice. It just kind of happened on accident. But I've proven to myself that I can do it. So that's a conversation, you know, that I'll probably be having with Scholastic at some point if they want to discuss more books. But I think that once I finish this other contract that I've got with the other publisher, that because I'm basically doing one Animorphs book and then one book from another series that I'm working on. Then I'm doing the second Animorphs book and then the second book in this other 3-book series. So when I'm done with that, then I technically wouldn't have any other reason to not be able to do like 2 a year if they wanted me to.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Feast or famine has been our experience. And hey, speaking of which, it is time for a demo. We understand you're willing to show us how to do this. We don't have to talk too much. We'll babble, but mostly we want to see how you pull this off.
I'm going to draw a Taxxon real quick because I enjoy drawing them and they aren't too complicated. So anyway, I usually start with the eyes because that kind of gets things going.
I could not do this in a million years.
I always get really nervous when I'm drawing when people are with just one person watching over my shoulder.
I can't imagine trying to write with anybody watching.
I know, in a million years.
Yeah.
Or stab them.
And I've seen some some of the other book covers and stuff where they had like their eyes, the Taxxon's eyes were kind of like this with like kind of on stalks that kind of hung out from their head. But I don't know, I kind of like the idea of like these pools of like jello kind of just sloshing around on their head. So that's why I kind of changed it just a little bit when I was doing my version.
So here's a question from Ziegler Jaguar. How did the two of you come up with the plot for the quote, the next book, and flesh it out together? I can say, looking back, there was very little bloodshed.
There was a fair amount of argument. In those days in particular, kind of an operatic, couple. So we would, we like to declaim and announce and, kind of be big about the whole thing. Then we'd go, well, this is a really stupid argument, isn't it? And then, yeah, it's a stupid argument. What are we going to do? I don't care. Let's just do it. So that was our usual careful planning method.
It's messy. I always say it's like, sausage and legislation. You don't want to actually know how it's done because I think it varied over time,
and whenever
back and
we
forth.
didn't have an idea, we just would watch a Star Trek and steal an idea from them. So
that's okay, right?
That helped a lot. Actually, I think the only one we stole directly from them was Rachel gets split into good and evil. And that was from a famous original Star Trek episode. But of course, it was from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde long before that. So we felt like we were stealing.
It had been done.
What was it, Robert Louis Stevenson?
There's nothing new under the sun.
From him. Here's No Truths. You created many alien species over the course of the series. Was there ever a kind of method to the madness? Did the Taxxons' hunger influence their design? Or did their design inspire the hunger? Well, from our perspective, the reason for Taxxons were we had just started paying taxes on a regular basis. And we were not all that thrilled with the entire idea of the first part because we were kind of astonished at how much it was. Now we've gotten past that and we understand. And so, you know, we're good.
We're grown-ups.
But that's where the Taxxons came from. They're so hungry they'll eat each other. You know, it was kind of a certain because we'd always been poor. You know, we hadn't had to worry about it much because, you know, usually they would
By
give us
virtue
money.
of our own stupidity, I should add.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No, we were born poor. We
were
worked
just-
hard to make ourselves poor. Here's one for Lord Ravenscraft, who I know, who does a lot of YouTube stuff, and you ought to check him out. Lord Ravenscraft for KA. What are you most looking forward to seeing brought to life in future graphic novels that we haven't seen yet?
Well, as we discussed, obviously
I think
Axe.
the Axe.
Axe, it's got to be Axe. That's going to be huge. No pressure, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited about it too, though. So.
And also lesser known stuff like Eric the Chi, who's, I don't know if people know this, but Eric was the guy who won a contest. And it was like, we'll use you in a book. And then, poor kid, we ended up using him like 10 more books. And I guess that was okay with him. I hope it was okay with him. But yeah, that's where that came from.
I've actually heard him being interviewed on a couple of the Animorphs podcasts and stuff. He comes on and they talk to him about what it was like to win a contest and be in the books and stuff.
Is he okay? Did we not?
Yeah, no, he seems like he adjusted just fine.
Hasn't killed anyone. That's good. Okay.
This is a good one. Bestial Moon, for everyone, is there a favorite page or even panel of the graphic novel? I'll say right off the bat, I was blown away when our editor sent us the very first early sketches, and that first page, and we realized how there's something so weird about seeing your, you know, little ideas in your head suddenly turn into this visual, tangible thing, and there's a zillion.
Yeah, I mean, the one that really struck me was it's a panel with a bunch of birds. You know, it's one a hawk and an eagle, and you know, various characters, obviously. But it, boom, you know, it just jumped out at you. And it's one of the things I've always wanted to see was a visual representation of stuff like that. Because I don't think either of us is terribly visual. You know, we can describe it, but you know, not really see it in our heads.
Not like this, not like what we're watching.
From Misty 306, question: how does it feel to know that you're getting the recognition you deserve for influencing young readers from the 90s?
I don't know about you, but I feel old.
Yeah, it was actually. It sounds like such a writerly stupid thing to say, but I think we both found it humbling because it wasn't the intention, obviously, to you know, we're just trying to write books.
We're trying to pay the rent.
We're just trying to pay the rent.
More than anything.
So yeah, it was actually the old cliche. It was humbling because you just think, oh, really? And I should pay more attention to what I say and do in the world. It's like you're being observed suddenly.
And you meet the fans. That was a whole lot of it. It was just, oh my gosh, these people are so smart, so amazing, so engaged. And then you're like, oh man, I don't deserve this. It's humbling.
Yeah,
it really is.
Which is, I guess.
And the fan fiction, and the podcasts, and the fan art. I mean, that's been going on obviously forever. Yeah, and as we started encountering that, we were just blown away. Totally.
Yeah, it's just honestly, when you're a writer, I mean, you write at home, or well, some people go to the office, but we write at home.
Anywhere there's coffee.
And it's just, you know, you and your laptop, or, you know, you and your laptop and your wife or husband, as the case may be. And you kind of don't, there's this lag time between when you write it and when somebody reads it. And an even longer lag time before you maybe start hearing from them to read it. But in this case, it was even stranger because we wrote it, sent it off. It was 6 months later that it would appear on the shelf. And then 15 years later, we hear from the fan.
Yeah, a bit of a lag time. Absolutely.
I thought, oh, okay. Thanks for the excellent, very late, our fault, sorry, feedback.
Yeah, it's very different now. I mean, obviously we connect with people on Twitter and Facebook and that kind of thing. And that just wasn't possible. So that's
No,
Yeah, that's part of it.
no.
but,
Thank God for Twitter, don't you think? Don't you think that every day of your life? Thank God.
I do. I do. I thank God
I've
for
lost a year of my life from stress off of Twitter at one time or another. How do you think? It's from Rage of Anna.
That's probably about as good as I'm going to get on this. So.
Excellent.
Oh, it's amazing.
Very nicely done. Everybody out there in virtual chat world, round of applause. Okay, we got a question from Rage of Anath. How do you think the Animorphs would deal with their task if they met Elfangor in 2015 instead of 1995?
Cell phones.
Yeah, cell phones.
Yeah.
It's such a, cell phones have a deleterious effect on some kinds of plots.
This has been a sort of ongoing discussion vis-a-vis the movie that is always maybe going to be made. And it's an interesting question because cell phones technology changes everything.
Yeah. But it also dates out so quickly.
It
so
does.
if you include it, I mean, even showing an original iPhone now looks strange. You know, it looks odd, and they're essentially, you know, more or less identical to what you got now.
Yeah.
So that tends to age out quickly. Slang ages out quickly. Same kind of issue. Cell phones would be, first of all, they'd have the internet, which would be great because they could do a lot more research and find out a lot more stuff. On the other hand, they'd be more exposed because they'd have the internet.
Oh, this is a good question from No Truths. The books often describe the animal perspective in great detail. Is depicting these perspectives in a visual medium anyway daunting? Are there any you're expecting to be a particular challenge down the road?
This is bad for two blind elderly people.
I just lost it there.
Okay, what was the question again? Where?
Basically, depicting animal perspectives for Chris. Yeah, in a visual medium. What's that like for you?
Well, okay, and I know that they are described a lot in the book. And I had to kind of come to the decision early on that it's like I'm going to be able to show some of that when I can, but some of it I'm just not going to be able to. It's going to be too complicated to try to show that and explain what's going on, you know. And it could take the reader like out of the story if I'm kind of messing around trying to explain why suddenly everything looks wonky or looks different. Or but I did try to do that a little bit when Jake turned into the lizard. I tried to skew things from his perspective a little bit. Since he was so tiny and you know, people walking around, I tried to make it look a little bit different. But for the most part, I'm trying to include everything I can, but sometimes
how to do that though, isn't it? Because okay, let's say you're looking through a hawk's, you know, obviously very superior vision. What do? Draw more clearly? I mean, it doesn't, you know, it kind of doesn't track. And then there's other animals where it's more about their sense of their hearing or their sense of smell. Yeah. So you can't really show that, can you?
No, it's kind of hard. And I think if it was like a TV show, you could show like, you know, Tobias, like looking with hawk eyes, you could do like a blur or something and focus like just right on what he's looking at or something. But I don't, with the, you know, graphic novel stuff, it's a little different because I don't have like a moving camera and there's nobody like talking over it or explaining what's happening. It is definitely challenging, and daunting, I see, is the word that they used, and that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of doing my best navigating through it and trying to represent animals as much as I possibly can. Some of them I'll do better than others, probably. Others, you know, hopefully I'll do amazing, but I don't know.
It's all been amazing so far.
It certainly has.
Seriously, we would say it if it wasn't. I think recently we established our bona fides in that line. We'll step back if we can't personally endorse something because we know about it, we like it, and have a hand indirectly in it.
If anything, in all candor, we've really felt weird even taking credit for this because I mean, we gave you the basics, but I mean, Chris, this has been you. This is, it's amazing.
Well, thank you. And that means a lot to hear that from you guys. Cause from the time that I was offered kind of the job, I was immediately nervous because, you know, there's the fans who want to see what they want to see, but like, these are your babies. And I'm like, I don't know them. I've never met them. I've heard that they're really nice, but I don't want to be the guy that ruins this like right out of the gate, you know? And But it's been a real positive experience, and I'm really happy you guys are happy, and the fans seem to be pretty happy with it all.
Beyond happy.
Have
you ever seen an Animorphs? I'm trying to think. I mean, had it crossed your path as a kid?
Well, they came out right when I was crossing over from high school to college.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this a little bit, that I did see them because I used to spend a lot of time in the children's book section at like Barnes & Noble, because there was one pretty close to my college. And I was constantly buying books and collecting for research and looking at illustrators and stuff. So they were there and I saw them, and I was always like, what is happening on the cover of those books? You know, they're iconic, right? And they're very memorable. And so it was always in the back of my mind. And then after I graduated college, I worked at Borders for about a year. And over my lunch break, I grabbed the first book and read it over I think like 2 lunch breaks or something, or 3 lunch breaks. And I was like, then I was like really into it, but there was no way I had time to commit to like 54 books or however many books there were. I didn't know at the time. So I kind of lost track of it because I was also trying to get a job and stuff. So
well, for the purpose of this particular broadcast, Chris, don't you mean to say that you used to work at Barnes & Noble instead of Borders?
I loved working at Barnes & Noble. It was the best place.
Borders, may it rest in peace, is no longer with us. So, yeah.
For the youths in the audience, it's an old book.
That's true.
Let's see what we got here.
I thought this was a good one.
Okay,
the question, just
blind reading to the blind.
Without spoilers, this is from Mel Simba 23. Did you know how the series was going to end from the beginning? I guess that's to the two of us. And I will say this up front.
Did we know?
Yeah, I mostly write middle grade novels, single title novels these days. And when I go on book tour, invariably there's an Animorphs fan in the back of the room who is still mad about the way we ended this series. So, but we didn't know.
Oh, we didn't know anything.
No.
First of all, you got to understand, when we sent this to the publisher, we obviously intended it to be a series, and the first contract was for 6 books. It wasn't for 63 books. I think we would have run screaming from the room probably if we'd known that. So we couldn't plan it out because we didn't know how long it was going to go.
Mm-mm.
And in the end, we were able to end it on our own terms. In other words, they didn't say you're done. We told them we're done, and gave plenty of, and worked in the last couple of books. We wrote those ourselves.
And I will say our publisher, Gene Fywell, and our editor, Tanya Martin, they were amazing about giving us incredible free reign, probably more than we should have had.
Yeah, I mean, the David trilogy would have never happened if there had been adult supervision, for sure.
Yeah.
No, let me mention Tanya Martin again. Tanya Alicia Martin was our editor through the entire thing, through every book. And she was, in many cases, a hell of a lot more than an editor. And she is like the fifth Beatle. She's the third Apple Grant at that end. So she's like to get her name out there.
Absolutely. And thank God and Gene Fywell, who saw this over the transom because we were too dumb to know how to submit.
We sent him a box of books we'd written. And a cover page.
Here we go. And to her credit said, I think there's something there. So that's pretty amazing.
They're idiots, but they have a great idea. I think was the idea.
Yeah, we called it Changelings, which right away, it was not a good title.
They threw that back in our face. They were right.
Yeah.
Okay, suddenly Steve asks, Chris, I have friends who are traumatized that Chapman has a beard. How'd you make the choice to depict characters who didn't get a lot of physical description in the book?
I based him loosely off an assistant principal I had in middle school. He was the guy who was in charge of all the disciplinary stuff. He was a good guy, and luckily I didn't have much interaction with him. But I always remember him standing outside in the hallway in between classes and kind of doing that bouncing on your feet thing. And kids would come up and he always wore like a sweater vest over his tie, and they would come and untuck his tie for him, and he was a really nice guy. But But I don't know, when I think of assistant principals, that's like my first thought. So that's, I didn't even think about not giving him a beard. And I'm sorry that I traumatized people by adding a beard, but it happened, and you're going to get a lot more of it in book 2. So
Mel Simba 23 again. We're giving her a second. How similar are the aliens from the original illustrations, show, and or graphic novel to how you originally envisioned them when writing? I guess that's for us. Any huge differences? Yes, we can picture them now. because an actual artist came along and drew them.
Yes.
So it was very helpful.
Absolutely.
Quite frankly, there's nothing we've written that I wouldn't mind having Chris kind of sitting in the corner. Does it look like this? And I'd be,
yeah.
Just hold that there while we describe it.
Absolutely.
Is there any, Michael Jekyll, probably screwed that up. Is there any chance for an animated television show?
Oh, that would be cool.
We wanted that's what we wanted instead of the Nickelodeon show, The Atrocity.
Enough said.
But we wanted it to be done over, Warner Brothers had done Batman at that point. I forget what it's called, Batman animated series. Oh my God, it was just beautiful. We just look at it and go, we just freeze frame this thing and just look at the picture. I mean, it was so good. I mean, it's like so noir, so effective. I mean, it was shot by a great director, that kind of thing. So we thought, oh, we'll do that because they can afford to show an Andalite. They can afford to do all the things Chris is doing right now.
Yeah,
except make them move.
Yeah.
But no, we got the other show instead, and the famous Visser head on a stick. Somebody the other day showed. Did I show this to you?
Enough said.
About the lassoing of Visser 3. Oh my God, we'd never seen that before. The last 20 years would have been
Look, in fairness,
so terrible if I'd known that was out there.
In fairness, they had a limited budget.
Well,
okay,
then don't do it if you got a limited budget. It's like, don't tell me you're making, truffle lasagna and they go, except without the truffles and the cheese. It's basically pasta. Well, don't do it then.
There was a lot of paper mache and tin foil involved in that production. But yeah, it would be so cool as an animated TV series. Absolutely. There was another question on here from Sydney Tillman, I think, about favorite characters. And I'm going to step up she's always kind of bottom of everyone's list for Cassie, because I loved Cassie. I know I love Rachel's physicality and Marco's sense of humor and Jake, and obviously Axe and Tobias, but Cassie was sort of the moral center, and she loved animals, as do I. And she was a good chick. I liked her a lot.
Yeah, I somebody on I'm trying to remember who it was, one of the YouTubers who does this, was looking at it, and his opinion was that Cassie's a hypocrite, but necessary just the same. In other words, she would hem and haw about fighting and killing. And then she'd go ahead and rip the guy's throat out.
Yeah. She was angst ridden.
Yeah, but it makes her even braver because she was aware of the fact that what she was doing might have some moral implications, and yet went ahead and did it.
Whereas Rachel was psychotic.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, so my favorite character was, it'd be Marco.
Yeah, I love Marco.
I mean, it's, anybody who knows us will go, Cassie, Marco. So we're very kind of, that was kind of more or less, not directly, but more or less each of our voices
that's fair,
in the thing, in the books.
Yeah. So we gotta close out in a couple minutes.
Let's take one more question.
Let's see.
Want to do that?
Yeah, Jawasco. Thank you, Michael and Katherine, for writing the series. I read every book as it was released. Is there one particular lesson that the three of you hope kids who read these in 2020 learn from the series?
Let's throw that to Chris, just to screw him up.
Go, Chris.
Avoid having to draw amusement parks. That's gonna be I don't know. You guys take that one.
I really hate when people start talking about lessons and themes. As soon as the book's in your hand, it belongs to you.
And now we're supposed to remind you, I agree with that, by the way, supposed to remind you that the book is available 24/7 on bn.com, bnn.com. Don't even need an ampersand, just bn.com. It's in stores as well. If you're allowed to go into a store where you live, who knows? But you can get it online right now. Have it
Right
like
now.
a couple days at most, dude.
And once again, Chris, you are amazing, and we will be eternally grateful. Thank you so much.